Let me tell you a story about John and Jackie. John and Jackie met at Princeton in college. They met there. John was from Charlotte. Jackie was from a suburb in Chicago. They started dating and they fell in love. They both decided that they wanted to go to law school, so they were both admitted to Columbia Law School. And the summer after their first year at Columbia, they were married at the age of 24. They graduated from law school, moved back to Chicago, which was Jackie's hometown, and they both took jobs starting their careers with large corporate law firms. Their marriage seemed strong. They had a nice combined income, no kids, good friends, and they seemed to be living the good life. They worked long hours, but since they were both with large corporate firms, they just accepted that as being part of the deal. They would travel on the weekends, spend time with friends, got involved in lots of philanthropic activities. Jackie joined the Junior League, and John joined the Rotary Club and the Junior Chamber. Well, after being married for 5 years, they decided it was time to start a family, so they decided to have children, and they had a son. Jackie left her firm and went to work for a small technology company where her hours were more flexible and she could be a mom as well as an attorney. They were both happy as parents, but the stresses of work and marriage and family life were real, and they started to take their toll. John still worked long hours and he traveled quite a bit. 2 years later, they had a daughter. Another blessing, of course, but that just ratcheted up the stress in their lives and made it even more challenging. They were so busy running their family and taking care of their kids that they barely made time for each other. John was named a partner in his firm at the age of 30, a big accomplishment for a young guy, and that meant an increase in the family's income. He made top 40 under 40 by the Chicago Business Journal, and he was viewed as an up-and-coming star. But ultimately, Jackie left her company and decided to stay home so she could be a mom and help take care of the kids while they were still young. They bought a bigger house and fancier cars, so the bills always seemed to keep up with the income. And as a partner, John's hours were long and still stressful. He traveled often because many of his clients were out of town in some of the major cities. And when he was home, his wife felt like he didn't appreciate her and all she was doing to take care of the family, and he felt that she didn't appreciate him and all the sacrifices that he was making to provide for the family. They never went out on dates. They were always dealing with children. Their sex life left a lot to be desired. Well, all this was going on, and there was certainly resentment being built up. Meanwhile, John's firm hired a sharp new lawyer from Yale. She graduated top of her class. She was smart, she was beautiful, and she took a liking to John. Because they had many corporate cases out of town, they traveled together. They would work late many nights, and some of their trials would go on for a week at a time. And John would complain to her about his marriage, how his wife didn't appreciate him, and one thing led to another. Well, after a year, what started as a business friendship turned into something more. It became a physical affair, and John was able to keep the secret from Jackie for a pretty good while, about 6 months, but she could suspect that something was up by the way he was behaving. So one night when he was asleep, Jackie grabbed his phone and started looking through his text messages, and it became very clear to her exactly what had been going on. In an effort to save their family, the couple went to marriage counseling, but it didn't seem to work. John had clearly lost interest in working on his marriage. He loved being a dad, but he didn't want to be married anymore. And so the couple decided to separate, and then just a few months before their 8th wedding anniversary, John filed for divorce. This fall, we've been looking at a series of questions that Jesus asks. We started with the question on worry, and then we went to the question on judgment. Last Sunday, Donovan wrestled with this question of, can you drink the same cup that I drink? And today we come to Matthew 16, where Jesus says this, what will it profit you to gain the whole world, but forfeit your life? Or in a different translation, an older translation, what will it profit you to gain the whole world, but forfeit your soul. I actually like that better. In this context, Jesus is talking about discipleship, specifically what it means to be his followers. Before he raises this question, he tells his disciples, if any want to become my followers, they must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. What does he mean? What is he talking about here? Denying self? Losing life? That's not what our world tells us we should do. I am 37 years old, and a lot of the ministry, not all of the ministry, but a lot of the ministry that I do seems to be to people that are about 10 years on either side of me, 27 to 50. And generally speaking, these are folks that are driven, they're trying to build and succeed in their career. Many of them are parents, and they're trying to raise their children with the right values in what we all know is a pretty crazy world. And they are stressed. And they're trying to keep their marriage healthy and alive. But the combination of being a parent and nurturing your marriage and building a career and maintaining friendships and earning money and paying bills is very, very difficult. It's been said before by lots of different authors that we spend the first half of our lives establishing ourselves, building the container, education, career, marriage, family, a home. But then at some point we shift and we spend the second half of our life trying to ask the question, what is life all about? What is our purpose? How do we find meaning? What does it mean to really love our family? How can we build healthy, authentic friendships? What do we do when the toys that we've accumulated don't really satisfy us anymore? What happens when we realize that social status is not as big of a deal as we once thought it was, and that money won't buy us the contentment that we're looking for? What happens then? What do we do then? Well, at that point, we begin to figure out what life is all about. Jesus knew that all of us, or at least most of us, would reach that point in our lives where we see the difference between the way of the world and the way of God. And so he raises this question, what does it profit you to gain the whole world but forfeit your soul? It's a question that leads to a conversation about priorities and values and what's most important. What defines your life? Is it success? Is it prestige? Is it wealth? Or will it be the things that we know really matter? Will it be your faith? Will it be your spiritual life? Will it be your family? Will it be your friendships and living to help other people and showing mercy and compassion to other people? We all get to make that choice. My son Clayton is 5, and Clayton is really into money, dollars and change. He likes to count his money, which means, that's good for math, I suppose. He likes me to take him to the bank so he can take all of his pennies and dimes and nickels and quarters and he can trade those in for dollars, and that seems to make him really happy. He doesn't like the machine at the grocery store where you dump all your change into the top and then you get a receipt and give it to the cashier, because they take a cut, and he doesn't understand how that's fair, that they take a cut from the money. And you better not leave change or dollars around the house, because Clayton will grab them and will take it and put it in his collection. Now, Clayton doesn't carry his money in a wallet. He carries his money in a large, clear Ziploc baggie so everybody else can see how much he has. And remember, this is the same kid who about a year ago we were giving him $1 for Sunday school, and we noticed about a couple months in that lots of dollars were appearing in his piggy bank. And sure enough, those were not making it to Sunday school. But Clayton is fascinated with what things cost and with whether or not he can pay for it. He never wants to actually pay for it. He just wants to know if he could pay for it. Now, about a couple weeks ago, he put a business proposition out to our next door neighbors who are good friends of ours. Their daughter will watch our dog when we go out of town, and we'll pay her a check. Well, Clayton approached them and said, are you guys going out of town anytime soon? And they said, well, no, Clayton, we just got back from vacation. What do you have in mind? I said, well, I was just thinking, if you go out of town, maybe you could give me a key to your house and I could just come and check on things. And then you could pay me dollars. I don't take checks, I just take dollars. And our neighbor kind of looked at him like, who is this kid? He's 5. But somehow we've got to teach Clayton the lessons that many adults never learn. Life is not about money and what you can and can't buy. There's so much more. There's so much more. I had the chance to speak this summer at Harpeth Hills Church of Christ on Old Hickory. I did a summer wisdom series, invited some different ministers to come in. And the question that I chose for that talk that night was the question, how will you measure your life? And I got that question from Clayton Christensen's book, the Harvard business professor. It's a great book. But in the book, he asks a series of questions. How can I find satisfaction in my career? How can I be sure that my personal relationships become enduring sources of happiness? How can I avoid compromising my integrity as I climb the ladder of success? Christensen addresses these questions, and he goes deep in the book. But he wrote the book when he would go back to Harvard for his business school reunions. He wasn't teaching there yet, but he noticed that all the people from his MBA class were very successful, very rich. They had achieved worldly success by the world standards. They were CEOs and CFOs, and they were corporate bigwigs, and they were very wealthy. But he also noticed a couple other things. They were on their 3rd and 4th marriages, and their children wanted nothing to do with them. And all of their conversations were very superficial. So at that point, he made the decision that in addition to teaching innovation, which is kind of his niche at Harvard Business School, he would also teach the education of character. Because what good does it do to make a lot of money and have a lot of success in business if you don't develop character along the way? How will you measure your life? Because people measure their lives in different ways. John Maxwell likes to say, people use one word to sum up your life, so go ahead and choose it now. William Barclay talks about the difference between existence and living. He says to exist means that we have a breath and a pulse and a heartbeat. All of us here are existing. Some are healthier than others. But to live, he says, means that we are alive in the world where everything is worthwhile, where there is peace in the soul and joy in the heart and a thrill in every moment, where we don't take life for granted. Henry Nouwen says that the spiritual life is not a life before, after, or beyond our everyday existence. No, the spiritual life can only be real when it's lived in the midst of the pains and the joys of the here and now. Therefore, he says, we need to be very careful and look at the ways that we think and speak and feel and act from hour to hour and day to day and week to week and year to year. Another great author named Frederick Buechner says this: stop trying to protect, to rescue, to judge, to manage the lives around you. Remember that the lives of others are not your business. They are their business. They are God's business. Even your own life is not your business. It's also God's business. Leave it to God. It's an astonishing thought. It can become a life-transforming thought. Unclench the fists of your spirit and take it easy. What deadens us most to God's presence within us, I think, he says, is the inner dialogue that we are constantly engaged in with ourselves, the endless chatter of human thought. I suspect that there is nothing more crucial to true spiritual comfort than being able from time to time to stop that chatter. Or as Ian Cron said, to stop that inner voice of critique that is always going. One year Forbes did a study, and they talked to people in nursing homes and folks that were on their deathbeds, and they said, what are your deepest regrets in life? And remember, these folks had nothing to lose. Why would they lie? And then they ran an article on this, and among the things that were said was, I regret working too much at the expense of family and friends, losing touch with good friends over time, not turning off the cell phone more often, not realizing that happiness is actually a choice, paying more attention to my marriage. I should have done that. I should have buried the hatchet with an old friend or a family member. I should have spent more time with my children. I should have taken better care of my health at a younger age. I should have been a better mother or father. Nobody said, I wish I had been in the office more. I wish I had done more deals. I wish I had invested differently. I wish I had made more money. It was all about relationships and love and caring. Jesus says, what does it profit you to gain the whole world but forfeit your soul? There are many ways that we sell our soul, and oftentimes we only see it in hindsight. Sometimes we only see it when it's too late. Sometimes we only see it when we look back and we wonder, why were our priorities so jacked up? There's an acronym that I've used myself over the years to remind myself of 4 questions that I can ask as to whether or not I'm living life the way I want to live it. The acronym is LIFE. And for the L, I say, am I loving? Am I loving others with a pure heart and with good intentions? Do I want what's best for other people? And remember, agape love means unconquerable goodwill. It means loving people that have hurt you, loving people that have done you wrong, loving people that maybe you don't feel like loving. And for the I ask, am I inviting? Especially inviting people that often get excluded from the world, the marginalized, the powerless, the weak, the vulnerable, the sick, the lonely, those without a voice, the people that Jesus cared about throughout the Gospels. For the F, I'll ask myself, am I forgiving? Am I forgiving, or am I just talking about forgiving? We're good at talking about it, but do I forgive others who have done me wrong, and do I ask for forgiveness when I've done others wrong? Failing to forgive just means that we're carrying around this burden that's heavier than it should be, and usually when we won't forgive, we're just being stubborn. And for the E, it's, am I living for eternity and not just for this life? Because there's a difference in living for eternity. There is something on the other side of death if we believe and trust in Christ and his words. It's not just about this world. Don't forfeit your life. Don't forfeit your soul. Don't sell your soul to the things that give you instant gratification but will let you down in the long run. Don't neglect the things in your life that you know are most important, your faith and your spiritual growth and your family and your friendships and your service to other people, because these are the things that give us meaning and success in the long run. Ralph Waldo Emerson once sat down and he charged himself with writing down what he thought the definition of success was. Success. And I'll close with what he said. Success. To laugh often and much. To win the respect of the intelligent people and the affection of children. To earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know that one life is breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. What does it profit you to gain the whole world but forfeit your soul? Amen.